Happy Wednesday and welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Curtis Anderson on the show. Welcome to the Wolff Den. How are you?
Matt, thanks for having me on the Wolff Den and looking forward to sharing my story with your listeners.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story, but for the people who don't know who you are, just give a real quick intro and then we'll get into all of it.
Well, on June 26, 2002, I was riding bulls at the Ponoka Stampede, and they opened the gate. I lost my balance, and my head smashed the bull's head twice. So I spent the first 3 weeks in a drug-induced coma at the U of A hospital. Then I spent a week short of a year in therapy, learning how to walk, talk, regain the use of my left arm, and basic life skills.
Yeah, it's lucky to be alive, right? One of those things that that day might have been completely different for in a lot of different ways, which we'll get into. I want to go to the beginning of everything, but the one question I'll have, and I know we'll hit on this as we go through, is what percent are you to your recovery? And can you ever get to 100% recovered?
Well, I mean, one thing as a survivor, you're going to recover the rest of your life. But I'd say, right at the beginning, it took 2 nurses to get me out of bed. And when you go from not being able to say a word to walking 10 feet was a big deal. And then, this summer I walked 20 miles in a day. So I would say, besides my left arm, it's darn sure making progress too, but I'd say I'm probably, 70, 75. Like my balance and not everything's strong. My left arm would be the weaker side of the recovery, but it's making progress all the time.
And your brain, mentally, all this. Are you able? Will you get to 100%, or is that something that's just you're going to inch closer as you go?
Yeah, you're gonna all recover from now on. It's just one thing as a survivor. I don't know if anyone's ever 100%, but I'm darn sure making progress, and that's the biggest thing with recovery is you'll keep getting better as long as you want to. And that pertains to anything in life, but especially recovery.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the beginning. You're in Canada, and how do you get to the point where you're riding a bull at a stampede?
Well, it all started, I was about, 14, and the neighbor rode bulls, and I just thought it was something interesting. So I started riding junior bulls, and I started riding the open when I was 17. So I rode bulls 10 years prior to the accident. And Matt, 2 weeks before the accident, I had a severe concussion at the Innisfail Rodeo. So my brain was already injured here, and the 2 hits I took at the Ponoka Stampede took it over the edge. So I'm living proof what happens when you go back too soon without letting your brain heal from the first concussion. And the second hit always causes the most damage.
So a couple of things there. You rode thousands of times. It's like riding a bike. It's like hitting a golf ball. That's what you do. So the first accident, what happened? You're riding a bull. We've all seen people ride a bull. Anything can happen, but was there something particular that happened, or it was just?
I got they call it whipped down, and he just hit heads with the bull. So that was 2 weeks before. So my brain was nowhere in shape that I should have been getting on. But back then you didn't know any better, just what you did. And Matt, when I got hurt in '02, two guys in Western Canada wore a helmet, and now there's probably over 95% of the guys wearing a helmet. So, and they're a lot more of concussion aware of concussions and the severity of repeated concussions. So they're taking time off to heal up better now.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing about injury because the concussion that you had the first time, it didn't really cause the second accident, but because you had a second accident and it wasn't fully recovered, that increased the severity of it. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, and I mean,
yeah, but what I'm saying is you very easily could have gone through that ride, not fallen, not hit your head, and then you would have recovered eventually.
Yeah, I just, well, I guess I wasn't. I know one thing about concussions. It's a very thin line you don't want to cross, but it's. Well, I know now. A broken arm is 6 weeks, but a brain injury is forever, and it's just something that you don't want to mess with.
Yeah, what I'm saying is the concussion. I think the concussion didn't cause the second accident.
No,
which is bad luck.
It didn't cause it. I lost my balance and smacked heads with that ball at Ponoka twice.
And it's a game of inches, like anything else. Couple inches.
Oh yeah.
Couple inches, you don't smack your head. Couple inches the other way, you're not here talking to me right now, or maybe you're paralyzed, right?
Right.
So you fell, you smacked. It's the second one. 3 weeks in an induced coma. What was, obviously you're in a coma. You've talked to people around you, family, friends. What was the diagnosis? What were they told as they're waiting for you to come out of this?
Well, that's Matt. I'll tell you the truth. The doctors can be the worst critics when it comes to brain injury. I mean, they don't. They say, well, he ain't gonna walk, talk, yada yada, but they don't know. They don't know, and like the recovery you make, it's entirely up to you and how much determination you have and how much you put into it. I mean, one stat they say is after 2 years, that's as good as you're gonna get. But 2 years, you're just getting started, so it's.
Oh, you're 17, 20, you're 20 years.
20 years now, and I'm still seeing lots of progress.
Still seeing some progress. So the doctors, did they think you would walk? Did they think you would talk? At this point, they don't know what your brain is like other than what they can see in machines. Did they have any diagnosis for the people, or you don't know?
Well, I guess, they kind of tell everyone the same story. They don't know if you're going to walk, talk, live, but they don't know until you start your recovery and then start your journey. But it's one of those things.
When you first got out of the coma and you're awake now and you're talking to people, what were you told, and what was the feeling like right then and there?
Well, they never said nothing to me, and the first. Like Matt, say if you came to visit me, I can understand what you were saying, but for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I had to write everything down in a scribbler to communicate because I couldn't talk. So it was like being a baby again at 27. And I had to move my left arm with my right. It was kind of like a left side paralysis.
Yeah. And what were your thoughts then? I mean, what were your thoughts? What were your conversations like with the people around you?
Well, when you're laying there in bed, you realize that every single step of independence that you once had is gone. So you deal with loss. But then your journey starts, and you have choices. I mean, if you want to get better, well, that's easy. You just have to put in the work to make it happen. But I remember started writing a few things down in a scribbler, and I wrote down, I have a lot of work ahead of me. And I also wrote down, don't feel sorry for yourself. Just have a look around. There's always someone in tougher shape.
Yeah.
And I wrote down, I wanted to be a speaker, teach people, and help others. So, I guess from the beginning, I've always wanted to get better, and that's the biggest thing. If you want to, you will.
Yeah, so I mean, that's an important thing. We had John O'Leary on the show, and he was burned from head to toe. And they're asking, do you want to be alive? Do you want to get better? I imagine I probably feel, I might feel differently, and depending on what situation I'm in. But not everybody wants to make that fight and make that effort. They might not see the light at the end of the tunnel and feel like it's worth it. But it sounds like for you, it was never an option. It was, all right, what do we do now?
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like in the beginning, Matt, like when I went to physiotherapy, the physiotherapist, she walked alongside me for an hour a day, teaching me how to walk step by step, and it'd be your cane, left foot, and then right. And then there'd be an assistant behind me with a chair so I could take a break once in a while. And it was a big deal to walk 10 feet without stopping. And just one thing about recovery, you get to see achievements all along the way. So them achievements are pretty big. I
Yeah,
guess they're a big reward. Like Matt, it took 10 years before I could touch each finger to my thumb on my left hand. And that was a big day when I was able to do that. Or it was a big day when I was able to drink water again. And just little rewards like Matt, where there's a set of stairs in the public, there's usually only a railing on one side of them. Well, it took 8 years before I could use that left railing again. A lot of the times I went down the stairs backwards just so I could hang on to the railing with my right arm.
yeah,
So just little rewards that you get to see those victories. For 20 years I've been able to see victories, and those are the days that take you through the days when everything isn't roses and sunshine.
yeah. And obviously, you have a lot of help, therapy, and still have people help. What was your support like with your circle, your family, your friends?
It was good. And then like the rodeo world, it's pretty I guess tight knit community, and I had a lot of support from them. But Matt, some of the biggest and best support that I've had is from complete strangers. And say you're at an outing or someplace, and they haven't seen you in a while, and they give you feedback on how much recovery that you've made since the last time that they seen you, and it's those little feedback that make you feel good. And for a while there, everywhere I went, like speaking of outings or just places in general, I had a scribbler. I packed a scribbler with me, and people can write a comment on what they thought of my journey. And I probably have 3 of those scribblers full of comments. And I go back and look at those comments sometimes, and they sure pick you up. And for the first 13 years, I kept a list of things I could do with my left arm or 2 arms. And it took 10 years to do half of that list. And it's good to go back and look at, all the little achievements that you've made the first 13 years. And then you look at where you were then and to where you are now. And I mean, there'll be mountains of difference.
Yeah. Do you have a list of things that you still haven't been able to accomplish that you're working towards, or it's just sort of you're doing as it goes?
Yeah, I mean, lately I've been really focusing on getting more, well, I guess more movement or dexterity out of my left hand. So I'm still seeing gains all the time, trying new things with my left hand, just to tie my skates or to tie my shoes better. Or like, it's just something that it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's a struggle. When you had the injury, you talked about, mentally, you're almost like right a baby. It's not. I know they don't use the word mentally retarded anymore, but it's intellectually disabled, right? I mean, that's where you were at, and still at in a sense, correct?
Well, I mean, like when I said be like a baby, I mean, it was, well, you learn all, being able to walk, talk, all of it. But I don't know, like, know the right answer to give this, but you
But
just,
it was a struggle mentally too, right? I mean, even just as
oh,
you're
yeah.
does a lot of stuff sort of come back once you've done the beginning of it?
Yeah. And one thing that I was very fortunate is I never lost any memory. So I didn't have to deal with that loss. But it's one thing as a survivor, it it makes you appreciate everything that you have today because tomorrow can be all gone. And I know what it's like for it to be all gone. So yeah.
Yeah, I talk about this. It seems like every show now is just, why do we wait until something tragic happens to really start living our life and doing the things that make us happy? I don't do that anymore. I lost my father 17 years ago, and I always kind of had that attitude anyway. But once that happened, it was like, who knows? I'm just going to live my life and do the things that make me happy, and because we aren't promised anything. Um, but there's a lot of people who take stuff for granted. I probably still do today. You had the physical side and the mental side. For me, I think I'd rather go through the physical ailments than the mental. I know it's like impossible to choose, but even as I see people when we talk about people getting older, like, oh, they still have their health, but they're not mentally there, and some are mentally there, but they don't have their health. They can't get around or anything like that. Which has been more frustrating for you as you're recovering? Has one been harder than the other?
Uh, I mean, the physical, you can always work on that. But one thing about as a survivor, people, people only see the physical aspect. They don't know what's going on inside. And there's, I guess there's a lot you deal with. Like Matt, just the, I'm so sensitive to light, like whether it be lights in a fluorescent lights in the house or just even the bright sunshine, and it just sends things spinning. Or the first time that I went out for dinner, like if I'm in a crowded restaurant and it's getting pretty busy in there, I'll go outside because I get overwhelmed pretty fast from all
Yeah,
the stimulation. So I'd say dealing with stuff inside could be a lot tougher at times because you can always deal with physical stuff.
yeah. I mean, I hope I'm not meaning this in the wrong way, but you can have a conversation with you and you can understand that something happened, right? I mean, that's people who have conversations with you realize if I had a conversation with Curtis before the accident, it's a much different conversation, right?
Oh yeah, I don't know the answer for that, but yeah, I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
but I
I've
mean,
never met you before, but I assume, it just feels like sometimes a conversation might be harder to have than maybe previously. We didn't have to think about things. Is that stuff that you have to think and constantly try and your mind is
well,
always,
sometimes you gotta just slow down and sort things out. I mean, things aren't just you don't just answer
yeah,
fast like that.
Yeah.
but you still can get the job done. It just might take a few more seconds or whatever.
Do you find most people are patient with you?
Yeah, they're pretty good. Yeah, it's hasn't been really an issue.
No. And how about the people who knew you before? I mean, you sometimes you get someone who has an injury, or it's just things that happen. They have an injury, they get divorced, they have cancer, whatever it is. Sometimes people treat others differently. As the majority of people been supportive? Has there been instances where people look at you and they, I don't know, they just feel like they can't be bothered? It's a different
Well,
person.
I mean, everyone's been pretty good. I mean, there's been a few people kind of walked the other way, but I mean that's just their now you see their true colors.
Yeah. No, it's ignorance, really, is what it is, and not
Yeah.
having the compassion. Well, you like to speak. That's what you said. You scribbled. You want to speak. You've been able to do it a little bit now. Talk about the speaking roles that you have and what you hope to achieve with it.
One thing about sharing, being able to share your story, you never know who's sitting in the crowd that's walking down a road similar or walking down any kind of road, and you give them hope to keep fighting. And I guess my story is a story of never giving up, and it might make them realize that they aren't in, and just to keep going, and well, to never give up. And whenever you're faced with a challenge in life, you can either dig your feet in and do what it takes to get through it, or give up. And when you give up, all you prove is that you give up and that you didn't try.
Well,
And
I
then,
mean,
go ahead.
the message is don't give up, obviously. But if I'm in a crowd listening to you talk and I'm thinking, well, that stuff's never going to happen to me, hopefully. So how do they relate to everyday life with the stuff that you've been to, which is so, I mean, it's a 1% of 1% in the world that has to deal with that.
Well,
I mean, to me, the easy answer is, hey, if I can do this, then you can do this. But for some people, certain tasks and the battles that they're facing seem different.
yeah, and I don't know what everyone's going through in life, but it's just don't whenever things start stacking up against you, don't just fold and walk away. Put some effort in to get through it.
Did you ever think about, obviously you had good days, bad days, and I've had recovery on a real lower scale, but you'd be like, oh, I can't do this. Were you ever close to stopping and saying this is too much?
No, never.
Never.
Because I mean, if there's a chance of recovery, I'm going to put in the work to make it happen. Why? I'm not going to do things half-ass and just I didn't come this far to come this far.
Yeah. No, I get that. Where would you like to speak? I mean, where have you're speaking? I know you spoke at a Stampede.
I speak at corporate functions, corporate events, schools, sporting events, like the sports teams. Like I spoke to a football team and some hockey teams, and just anywhere someone would like to hear my story. I mean, I've spoke at some conventions, and just anywhere there's a chance, someone wants to hear my story. And just the best. I mean, I spoke at different brain injury centers up close to home, and when I speak it, they can relate to my story is, because I've walked down the road that they're on, and I know what it's all about. And it's a lot different than someone talking out of a textbook or reading stats.
Does anyone ever tell you how bad your situation was compared to others? Like,
Yeah, like I was mine, like Matt on the Glasgow coma scale. It starts at 15 and goes down to 3, and I was a 3, so I was an extremely severe traumatic brain injury survivor. And then I showed a nurse my injury report or whatever, and her words were, "You're a miracle. You shouldn't be here."
yeah,
And so I looked at my injury my injury report, and I mean there was damage everywhere. So I'm doing pretty good for the shape I was in.
yeah. I once went to a chiropractor and they got the X-rays and they're like, I don't even know how you're walking. It was, it's sometimes people just there's miracles. I mean, I don't compare that to any like real traumatic injury, but people can push through injuries like they could break something and they continue on to play a game or so that everyone's body it reacts differently to injuries and everyone recovers different too.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. There's there's nothing stronger in the world than the human spirit,
yeah.
and like
Well,
that.
what were you like before this? Did you have a lot of the same attitude, or did that have to
Yeah.
change?
No, I mean I guess I had same idea. I was I guess a hard worker, and that they say they say your characteristics or whatever before the accident heighten after. So that's I guess good thing that I've liked to put in the effort, because that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think part of this is you don't really know if you have any choice. I mean, I guess you
No.
always have a choice, but if you're sitting there, I mean, nobody wants to. I just I know people. I guess I know people. They get cancer and they don't want to fight it, and then you can just sort of go. But something like this,
You don't have a choice.
yeah, nobody wants to sit in a hospital the rest of your life because it's not your injuries weren't necessarily life threatening. They were just lifestyle threatening.
Yeah, it just like you said, you don't have a choice. You either get better or you don't.
Yeah, and it's your quality of life that is going to improve. Are you where you thought you might be 20 years down the line? You had hopes that you'd be this far, maybe further behind. Do you have a sense of where you are compared to where you thought you might be?
No, I guess I never really looked at it like that. But yeah, I mean, if you told me when I got hurt there that I'd still be working on 20 years later, I don't know how to. But I've said it a few times, but as a survivor, like I'll continue to work on my recovery the rest of my life. And if you don't work on your recovery, then you'll start going backwards. So all the work you put in will be for nothing.
So, what
So
kind of work are you putting in today, and how does that compare to a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
like Matt, I started, well, it guess 2 years ago now. I wanted to ride my stationary bike across Canada, and I just kept track of the miles on the calendar. And I started out in Vancouver, and I've gone 4,045.5 miles in 154 days. So, but on that bike, like I ride that bike for an hour at a time. And in the beginning, I did 2 hours at a time, but it took me 2 hours to do 30 miles. But last time I did 30 miles in 91 minutes and 7 seconds with way more tension. And but I ride it for an hour now at a time, and I get between 18 and 19 miles an hour. So, but not just the bike ride, like just it's like say sitting in a chair or even driving down the road. I can work on moving my wrist around or opening up my fingers, opening up my hand, and that's putting that work in is just as important as the bike ride.
And you said you walked 20 miles. That's an
Yeah,
impressive feat, regardless.
and like June is Brain Injury Awareness Month in Canada, so I
Okay,
walked 20 miles in 9 hours and 2 minutes. And like I said before, 10 feet used to be a big deal.
20 miles. Yeah, I walked 8 miles like a month ago, and it was brutal. My brother does Ironman, so
Okay.
he does a marathon and does the swim and the bike. It's incredible. Do you have a physical goal that you're? Do you? I mean, 20 miles. Maybe you could walk a marathon. Is that something you think about doing?
Yeah, in August 12th, 2018, me and a couple of friends were in a relay triathlon in St. Albert. So I did 5 kilometers in 58 minutes. So that'd be, you know, over 3 miles. So, and then I will look into doing, I mean, the other day, well, like Terry Fox, like he started to run across Canada in 1980 to raise awareness for cancer. So on Sunday, I walked 3.6 miles in an hour and 26 minutes for the Terry Fox run. So I was clicking along pretty good, and I'm able to walk with coordination now, with both arms swinging with opposite legs. So it's my walking's getting smoother all the time. And I remember the first interview that I had a year after my deal. The reporter asked, "What would you like?" And at that time, I said, "I want to walk around as if nothing happened." And I'm almost there.
Terry Fox. There was a movie
Yeah.
about Terry Fox.
Yeah. They've been doing the Terry Fox run now for like 41 years, and it's raised millions and millions. And not only just the money, the awareness that Terry Fox run has raised, I mean, it's worldwide.
I remember watching the movie. Powerful story,
Yeah.
right? How many times you wanted to quit, and uh, just I don't know. That was a long time ago. Before there's a lot of advances in medicine,
Yeah.
and he had a prosthetic, right?
Yeah. And he averaged like 26 miles a day on that run. I mean, he's a big inspiration for me. I mean, you talk about resilience and never giving up, and it's just amazing what he's accomplished back in like 1981 or so.
He died though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't quite get all the way across, but he was darn close.
No, but he had cancer,
Yeah.
and he had a disability.
Yeah, well, they took his leg. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the I mentioned the advances, right? The difference. Any thoughts on what would happen if this happened today, and how maybe would the recovery be any different? Do you think it would be faster with the advances in medicine and technology?
Well, they got a like a for doing surgeries, I think it's called the gamma knife, and they can locate exactly where the injury is, so they don't have to, I guess, cut through areas or whatever to get to the injury. They can just with that gamma knife, it cuts recovery time down a lot in certain cases.
But you
And
didn't have any surgeries or any procedures, correct?
pardon me.
Did you have surgeries or
Oh yeah,
procedures?
yeah. Surgery that night as soon as I got to the hospital.
That was in the brain.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then,
I don't know how many hours it was, like say 7 hours or whatever it was. I guess a long surgery.
hmm. What if you could snap your fingers and all of a sudden these things would be back to 100% normal, how you were before? What's the most important things to you that you're working on that you would love to have back?
Uh, I guess, well, the left arm, full
Yeah.
use. But I mean, I get to, well, I'm it's, it's going towards full use. It's just a matter of putting in the time to make it happen. And just, I don't know if I have a proper answer, but it just, as for being a survivor for 20 years, this is, you have to, let go of who you were before the accident because this is your lifestyle now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I understand. Um, my guess is you probably wouldn't be able to, but if you were, would you get back on a bull?
I would, but I darn sure wear a helmet.
Do you think you'll ever be able to get back, or that's
No,
physically you couldn't do it?
no.
Yeah.
But like Matt, like I at some bull rides I share my story, and I talk to the guys one on one about taking time off, and when I'm sitting in the crowd, I'll judge where I think the score should be. So I'm still involved in the rodeo, just in a different manner.
Yeah. If you had a helmet on that day, you'd
Oh
still
yeah, I
be
would.
injured, but much less.
Yeah, like I would have probably had a pretty good concussion, but it wouldn't have been to this degree.
No, but your body would have been, your arm and physically might have had the same injuries.
Yeah, like I mean, the arm that's from the brain injury.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the
So
arm is a result of a brain injury, not from
yeah,
being hit by the bull.
no,
And there's nothing in science, I don't follow this that much, that says they can like hit that part that tells your arm to.
no, like a whole new area of my brain. I had to learn everything that the area that got hurt did. So
Yeah.
it's and then the more you do something like say open your fingers or whatever, it the more you practice that, then the message will get sent fast. The more repetitive that you do it, the message will be sent faster.
Hmm.
The neurons.
What having this injury, being able to speak has opened up some doors and maybe taken you some places that maybe you wouldn't have gone if you were just riding a bull. What can you talk about some of the great places or things that you've been able to do, or people you've met or organizations because of what you're going through?
Well, one I guess pretty. I spoke at a school in Vermilion, like town close to home, and then there was a boy that rode his bike to school every day. And at the end of that day, the boy inspected his helmet after hearing my story, and he walked his bike home. To like just to know my story made that much of an impact that he thought twice about. He never rode his bike home because he checked out his helmet and realized it was no good. And then there was a, I spoke at another school, and a 7-year-old boy, he walked up and he said, "I want to thank you for never giving up." And just those little, I mean, those connections like that. And then just, I spoke, some other events, and then there's survivors of all type. And then they say, well, you gave me hope to keep going in my recovery. And just being able to give people hope is one of the biggest things. And then, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a remarkable recovery and story. I would love to say if that's something like this happened to me that I'd be able to fight through it. And I sitting here today, if I'm honest, I don't know. I know myself, I'm pretty motivated and I love life, but uh, I don't know. I guess a lot of times you don't know what you're capable of doing until you're faced with that journey.
Yeah, until your back's against the wall, you don't know what you can accomplish. But it's you darn sure have to want to.
Yeah. I mean, you said you talked about riding a stationary bike. Do you ride an actual bike? Are you able to drive? What are
Oh
your?
yeah, I've been driving since 2010, but I
Okay.
mean that was a big deal to get the license back. I had to learn how to transfer from a wheelchair to a vehicle, and then like I had to take a road test and stuff like that. But I Matt, I tried riding a regular bike this just a month ago, and like my left foot kind of wants to slide off. I don't have I guess the balance, or just I'm not
Well,
able to ride a regular bike as of yet. But that's something that right there is something that I want to work towards being able to do.
isn't it wild that you could drive a car but you can't ride a bike? I mean, it's just the nature of the balance that you need to ride it. It's just,
Yeah,
but a car is, yeah, it's a weird phenomenon. Some of the things people can and can't do physically. And some of that could be there's people without a leg or without an arm, and it's like if I'm, uh, I guess I didn't even ask you this. Are you right? Were you right-handed?
yeah, that's pretty lucky. I was right-handed.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be able to figure it out because I do some stuff with my left hand, and I broke if you broken stuff, you just kind of it works at it. So for if you have to learn that, I think you can do it. But it certainly helps to you
Yeah,
know
and I'm able to. Well, after we're done, I'll send you. I wrote about say 12 words characteristics of a survivor. I wrote it down with my left hand on a piece of paper, and the penmanship is pretty good, but you darn sure got to focus to get it done. And that's one thing. Every single thing you do, I mean, you got to focus on what you're doing at the same time. I mean, I've been able to do it for quite a few years, but like taking the lid off a toothpaste
mm.
to you got to focus, put all the focus into like getting them fingers to turn and everything. But it's
I mean, there's still people who struggle with that type of scenario, and they got full use of all their hands. So
and you know those little jams in a restaurant.
yeah,
I can take the lid off them jams with my left hand now,
well,
so
there
that
you
was a pretty big deal.
yeah, those are not easy either. Yeah, definitely not easy. Have you talked about you had some of the scribbled notes that you look back on? Have you kept a journal uh, or sort of written down stuff as you've gone through the recovery over 20 years? Have you thought about writing a book? What?
I'm thinking about writing a book. It's gonna be called Road Recovery
Okay,
or Walk a Mile in My Boots. It's a work in progress, and I had started one. I had started one a book, but I only had a few. You know, I mean, a lot more has happened since I started that book, so I want to get it a little more deeper.
yeah,
And
20 years and all the progress and the stories. I know you reference mental health sometimes. I'm actually wearing my Same Here hat. It was an event that they did at Citi Field for the New York Mets baseball. Same Here is a mental health organization with the hashtag 5 and 5 that everyone is dealing with some sort of
yeah,
mental health challenge. Um, Talk about your mental health throughout the journey. There's days when I'm sure you were, not feeling great and had some thoughts. What's the mental health like along the way? How is it now? What do you suggest people do when they're having those moments?
one thing there's for me, I guess nature is a big healer. Like, I mean, not, but just being able to get outdoors and just let the, like Matt, this is kind of off track, but the first time I was able to go off the unit in my chair, I went outside and put my bare feet in the grass. And just even I do that now, and a whole sensation lights up my body, and everything, it goes away. And exercise is huge for me. Like that, it takes your mind off things. But as far as, I guess, mental health, it just I sit I sit in a chair and close my eyes and just have complete silence and just, I don't know, try to shut things off. I
And
can't
that
give a
work.
proper answer for this, but
No, that works for you. Do you have a lot of dark days, or did you
no,
have a lot of dark days?
not in particular. And one thing I find is keeping myself busy. That's a big part.
Well, what keeps you busy these days? I know you do some speaking, but when you're not speaking, what keeps you busy?
Well, like we're harvesting right now, so I mean, then like I live about 10 minutes from my mom and dad's farm, so I go over and help them. So I, working with cattle, or well, we're harvesting right now, and just stuff like, you always seem to be doing something.
Yeah. What's something that's a real physical challenge? I know you're not going to get on a bull again, but is there something that you're working towards? We talked about a little bit. Is it walking a marathon? Is it riding a bike? Something that's achievable that you got to work towards?
Well, riding a regular bike, and then I guess, I mean, I can run, but I guess I like to get it smoother and just to have or I'll show you, like, this is my left hand,
Yeah.
and I like to have that just open automatic, like, and
I
it,
mean, we take that for granted. I hurt myself the other day, and it was like, you know,
okay, Matt, touch each finger to your thumb on one of your hands.
yeah. I mean, we
Okay,
take
so
these
that
things
took you
for
a few
granted.
seconds.
Yeah, it's crazy. Again, these things that we take for granted it's not a big deal to us, but it's people would love to be able to do that. Whether it's, you hurt your hand. I even sometimes when I have my allergies and when you're sick, like you can't breathe and you feel. I mean, there's people who are dealing with this stuff every day, and it's not an allergy and it's not going away. And you know, this is what they have to deal with. So, you know,
Yeah, I guess appreciate what you have. I said it before, but
yeah, your
you
brain
don't
and
know how you do
mentally
it.
and physically. That's the two most important things in your life: your brain and your physical well-being. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone about maybe not treating my body as good as I should, but I do. I try and do better. I hide it well. It's hard to tell if you're seeing me sitting here with clothes on.
The past few years, I've been paying attention to what foods really make my brain feel good, and that's helped a lot. Is eating proper, and it's rest, diet, and exercise are some of the three biggest steps for a survivor, or for anyone. But
Yeah, is there? I mean, obviously, if you go back, you would tell yourself to wear a helmet. Was there ever a thought to wearing a helmet as you're riding, or no?
not then, no, there wasn't.
No.
But now it's kind of, uh, it's probably over 95% of the guys wearing a helmet now, and it's just kind of a everyday thing now.
Is that a Canada thing? Because I haven't watched a ton of it, but I don't really remember people wearing helmets.
Oh yeah, it's pretty big in the PBR. There's
Yeah,
pretty much everyone wears a helmet except the Brazilians. They aren't too high on wearing helmets, so they don't wear them as much. But Yeah, everyone's kind of gone to wearing helmets. Well, not everyone, but majority.
PBR is getting a lot of they're getting a lot of visibility lately, becoming a little
Oh
bit
yeah, they're
bigger,
huge.
bigger of a sport. I've been to one rodeo. I thought it was fun.
Yeah,
It's not necessarily my thing, but it was fun. It was fun to go to. I think everyone should get to a rodeo. Is there any event that's on your list that you'd love to get to that you haven't been to from a sports perspective?
I'd like to go to the PBR finals in Vegas
Yeah.
one year. Or even
Have you reached out to them to talk to at some of their events?
no, but there's the PBR finals are in like the Canadian PBR finals are on November 11th and 12th at Rogers Place in Edmonton.
Hmm.
So I reached out to PBR. Like I wrote a poem called "The Soldier and a Cowboy," and I might be able to do that poem on Remembrance Day for the soldiers. So I'll find out here pretty quick if I'm able to do the poem at Rogers Place. So that'd be pretty good.
That would be great. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, I've actually been out in Vegas when they had it, but never been to it. And I actually might be in Vegas again. Uh, I think I might be there again. I don't know. I'd love to work with the PBR. They got some cool stuff. I think we can
Yeah,
do
there's
neat things for them. But it's. I mean, these are world class athletes, right? The
oh yeah.
you can't just get on a bull and ride it. The thing
No,
will
I mean
carry you.
those guys that are. I mean that's the top of the top. The guys that are on the big PBR tour.
Yeah. How good were you, and how good could you have been?
Oh, I mean I held my own, but I darn sure could have been better. But I did okay.
If you didn't get injured, would you have been able to get on a professional circuit like that, or was
Yeah,
it
I
more?
rode at a couple PBR events, but yeah, I would have liked to, one day been on the PBR tour, but that's a ways away yet.
Yeah. What do you think was the greatest loss? What have you missed out on? Is that something that you've ever thought about? I know something we try not to think about, but I mean, I find some of these things would be difficult not to think about if it was me, at least.
Uh, I haven't put too much thought into it, but maybe, I don't know, this is maybe a little sappy or whatever, but maybe having a wife and kids.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, you're
I
certainly
mean,
not.
it's still not out of the picture, but,
Yeah, it's not like it's impossible, but
no.
certainly you would think that the this changed the trajectory of it. Um, yeah, it's well, I'm married myself, and I got people got kids. Who'll tell you you're not missing much. If we're gonna joke around a little bit, but if my wife's listening, that's not me saying it. That's everyone else saying it. No, I think it's valid. I think that's probably an answer that a lot of people would share. Um, we're going to let you out of the wolf den with the same question we let everyone go with. You can spend a day with anyone in the world, 24 hours. They have to be alive, and you can't be related to them. Who would you like to spend a day with, and what would you guys do?
They have to be alive.
They got to be alive. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Uh, uh,
Yeah. Whoever comes to mind. Someone.
maybe Jim Sharp.
Jim Sharp.
Yeah, he was a world champion bull rider in 1988 and
Okay.
1990. He is from Kermit, Texas originally. And when I was young or whatever younger, that's who I looked up to. And then there's Jim Sharp, but there's a Canadian. Oh no, yeah, they had to be alive. Yeah, Jim Sharp.
All right. That's a great choice. always would be great to meet the people that you grew up, watching and looking up to and motivated by. So yeah, we put all these on a list. We got a long list of people. If we can ever make it happen, we're going to try and do it. And I forgot to mention that you and I met in Mark Moyer's club room in the club room in the Win Again Academy. It's been great watching you and getting to talk to you. It's just a remarkable story by anyone's measure about where you're at today as compared to what happened that long ago. And I look forward to seeing the progress that you have now. Still a lot more progress to go, and a lot more good things that you're going to be able to accomplish.
Yeah.
So looking
And
forward to
Matt,
it.
I just want to say thanks for having me on the Wolf Den, not just to share my story, well, to share my story and to raise awareness and just exposure, I guess.
Yeah, we're all about sharing people's stories, and I think you've got as good a story as anyone else we've had on the show before. We've had a couple of traumatic brain injury people, and actually, I'll send you the show for that. It's if you want to reach out to Curtis, it's Instagram is Curtis Anderson 6. His email is cccanada0@gmail. So reach out to Curtis if you have any questions. If you think he could be a good person to speak where you're at, yeah, if you just want to get in touch and follow him, that's where you can reach him on LinkedIn as well. And we look forward to seeing you in the clubroom events and hearing what's next for you. Really appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for everything.